to speak to the Part A item, which is item 15 on our agenda today. Morning, or just about afternoon, Emma.
Just gone afternoon.
Thanks
Kia
for
ora
coming
koutou. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to the Cranford Street report on behalf of the Waipapa Papanui Inner Central Community Board. As you can see, our board recommendation is that the bus lanes which have been in place for the last 3 years be made permanent. I'm going to keep this short and sweet. The main thing I'd like to remind you all today, before you consider the report, is of the context and the background that has got us to this point. This decision is part of the Christchurch Northern Corridor project and Downstream effects management plan that have been years in the making. Our board has been consulting with the community, hearing residents' views, having regular updates from staff, first on the planning for the Christchurch Northern Corridor and then on the effects of its opening for over 6 years now. Over that time, we have read thousands of pages of information, heard hours of submissions, and as locals and users of Cranford Street and the surrounding area, have first-hand experience of the traffic issues the area faces. We know about the safety issues facing students trying to navigate their way across or along Cranford Street in order to get to their local schools. We understand the difficulties local residents are having trying to get around their own neighbourhood, whether it be by car, bike, or as pedestrians. And we are well aware of the frustrations experienced by commuters travelling through the area due to the congestion on Cranford Street. These issues also came through loud and clear in the submissions received in this round of consultation. We ask that you make a decision today based on all the information you have before you, including the content of the submissions. I'm going to leave it at that. Thanks. Yep.
Councillor Henstock, welcome back.
Thank you. Hello, Emma. Thank you for that. For the benefit of those that weren't at the community board meeting when this was considered, can you confirm what the staff recommendation was to the community board?
The staff recommendation was for clearways.
And can you confirm why that was?
Because taking into account the submissions and advice from the independent traffic expert and their own thoughts, I believe.
And so if the mood of the table today was to reject the recommendation to continue the bus lane and to have a clearway, could this decision be made by this table today?
My understanding is that the delegation for the clearway sits with the community board.
So to clarify, so if this was not passed today, this would go back to the community board?
Yeah, I believe that is the case. Yeah.
The same community board that decided it. So, and for the benefit of those who aren't on the community board, can you tell the table, please, about the recommendation that you brought to the community board in anticipation of this very issue happening today?
Yep, I can. At our November meeting, I brought a chair's report to the community board proposing that we, in this instance, give up our delegation for the clearway so that council would have all three options in front of it when making a decision.
And what was the outcome of that?
That did not make it through that report.
Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Kewen.
Thank you.
Yeah, just on the delegation thing, and it may be for staff more than you, Emma, why does the delegation for this sit with the community board and not with council? And
my understanding is because the bus lane and T2 lane are special vehicle lanes, whereas a clearway is just parking restrictions.
Okay, Councillor McDonald.
It's
sorry.
It's probably just on
Sorry.
the delegation, and it's more probably a legal question. In my mind, it's sort of anywhere I've been, the delegations are a hierarchy. So therefore, I'm just trying to understand why the council couldn't. And it's not a question for you, Emma, I apologise, but just in context of delegations, I can't work out how the council couldn't make a decision on a delegation that's exercised.
So can I just say that those questions would be better suited when we get into the item, but not for the chair who's just here giving her
That's fine.
report.
Yep, cool.
Can you ask that of staff?
Yeah, good as gold. Yep.
When the report's open. So these are appropriate for the chair? Councillor Harrison-Hunt and then Councillor Scandrett.
Good, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Let's rebalance the books a bit. Tell us about the benefits of the decision that you came to when you had that hearings panel.
A lot of the submitters that we heard from on the day, it was around the safety and not adding an extra lane of traffic onto Cranford Street, even if it is only just for those peak hours. We heard from St Albans School, who told us about a number of incidents there have been with students crossing the road, especially at the Westminster-Cranford intersection, as well as a lot of near misses. Yeah. So safety, I believe, was the main reason.
Okay. And with those that wanted to keep the bus lane, was that the common theme that was coming across
Yep.
when you came to that?
Yes.
Cool. And in the community board's view, where did they sit on it?
The community would like the vote.
After discussion? Yeah.
Oh, the discussion. It was, the vote was 6-3 in favour of the bus lane, and those who were in favour of the bus lane, it was about the safety and reducing emissions and getting more people into buses and less cars on the road.
That's good to know. Thanks a lot.
Councillor Scandrett?
Thank you and welcome, Emma. So for the 13 recommendations, as it says from the community board, so they are what the community board wants. So after everything you've been through, it's been a journey.
That was the vote on the day, yes.
Cool. And it was a 6-3 vote.
6-3.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, Councillor Johansson?
Yeah, thank you. I know a number of submitters raised concerns about safety and other crossings and stuff that probably is technically out of scope of the decision that we're being asked to make today. But
Yes.
I was just interested, like, particularly there's comments from Emergency Services, Environment Canterbury. So I'm just wondering, did the board identify a separate process to address
Yes.
some of those concerns? And if so, is there kind of more work being done around looking
Yeah,
at?
there is.
other improvements?
This is only one part of that downstream effects management plan. As part of that project, we are looking at the safety on those intersections in those areas that were brought up in those submissions.
And is the board looking at anything to restrict land use planning so close to where these intersections are, so that you get better, safer, more setbacks in terms of getting safer?
Not
I just note that
not
some
as
of the
part of this decision, we didn't.
some of the intersections here have like a lot of signage boards, have buildings built right up almost to the street, and very little space for pedestrians.
Yeah, no, that's not something we considered as part of this.
Councillor Kewen?
Yeah, just on, you raised one of the reasons the board went 6-3 in support was the emissions reduction. So were you showing some evidence that there's been emission reductions by having a bus lane and everyone else crammed in the other lane?
We were showing the numbers of how the bus patronage has increased.
Yep.
So I believe that came into the decisions of those people that voted that way.
But was there some evidence showing that the flow of 2 lanes would still be more than if you have everyone crammed in one lane and then the bus in the other lane? Was that shown? Is there a model for that?
I don't believe it was explicitly put like that, no.
Right, okay, so no. And then the other one was on the, your submitters were, it looked like more in favour of a clearway, and also the original traffic report for that road was to have a clearway from the traffic engineers. So why did the board go against the engineers and the public?
Last time it was back in 2019, 2020,
Yeah, I think
it
so.
was the council that decided not to go with the clearway.
So at that point, did the board support the clearway?
The board did not support any changes at that time.
So
The board
supported the
did
clearway?
not support the clearway.
Oh, it didn't
at that
support the
time,
clearway?
no.
So against the engineer's advice?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. There's no other questions for the chair. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Right. So, what are we going to do? Go into the report? Yeah, we'll move into the item. We've got I know the Mayor did want to be here, but we've got a lot of people in the gallery who've been waiting patiently all morning. So that's item 15. Have we got staff here?
Yeah, staff are here.
Yep, we'd like to go upstairs.
So, shall we get the staff to start presenting, or?
So do you want to give us a brief introduction, or are we going straight into the report? Okie doke. All right, so we'll take the report as read, and we open it up for questions, please. So Councillor Kewen.
Yeah, my one's still around the delegations, and how does the delegation for this sit with the community board when it's such a major part of the network, yet when it comes to cycleways they sit with the whole council,
Right,
and they're
is it
part of the network?
Questions for staff?
So the delegations are set up in a way where parking restrictions are delegated to the community board, and a clearway is a parking restriction. Was that your?
DEMP was specifically delegated to the community board. So yeah, I can't remember the exact date, but there is a resolution at one of the meetings where the decisions related to DEMP.
Because the elephant in the room here is, like most people, like technically it might be a parking restriction delegation, but most people in the real world see it as a traffic flow issue that has parking restrictions when it's not a clearway, and the network, and especially that one, affects the flow of the entire city. So
Can I just ask for legal advice here?
Yeah.
Please, we're questioning actually a delegation that's in existence. Is that relevant to this report today? I mean, it's not going to change today. So I don't want to waste too much time questioning something that's already...
No, we can't change the delegations today. That would require separate advice.
Yeah, so we've gone ahead under the delegation. There's a recommendation from the community board.
Could someone just follow up just to me only, because I get asked by the public this quite a bit, just how those delegations happened, when and why that it sits with the community board versus the cycleways sit with full council, because
So perhaps we can get that in a memo.
my ward gets double reamed in this case.
Thank you. Councillor McDonald?
It's not really litigating the delegation stuff. What I'm just keen to understand is, and I'm just thinking through basically most organisations, I'd be keen to understand the differences. The delegation has been delegated by the council, which by definition would mean that the council can make a decision. So I'm just keen to understand, like it's at our permission, someone else has made the decision. It just seems unusual to me that we can't make a decision on something we've delegated.
No, you'd be revoking a decision that's been made by a board, which advises that council can't revoke a decision made by another body, only that body can.
Yeah,
that
but
committee
this
can.
is a part A
But
though.
we are going to be reviewing having a look at some of our delegations and how they work anyway.
I guess what I'm keen to understand today, and it might be a helpful question, is just from a principle point of view, if something has been delegated by someone, the delegation has been by us, that by definition is a delegation, which means we can make the decision.
I can speak to that. So that's correct. If a decision hasn't already been made under delegation, whereas in this instance the community board has exercised delegation by making a recommendation.
So if that's the case, then why are we making a decision?
Because its decision was to recommend a bus lane, which requires council approval. So in order to consider a clearway, the community board would have to rescind its decision. Council can't rescind a community board.
Right, so so in a just thinking it through, in a normal environment, we could withdraw a delegation, or we could override a delegation, but because they've already made a decision.
A delegation, but if a decision hasn't been made yet, the council always has the option of making a decision.
And that's what I'm trying to understand, is I can't understand why we can't override a delegation, because they're our delegations.
No, you can. Council, and Helen said, can exercise and make the decision in itself.
Yep.
But because they have actually, it has been to the community board, and under their delegation, they have made the decision. It is only them that can revoke and change that decision. Council can't bring it back and revoke it.
Yeah, so on that basis, I will move this recommendation from the community board. Do I have a seconder? Councillor McClellan. Thank you. Any more questions? Councillor Moore? You're right. Any more questions? Councillor Johansson?
Does council still have any land that it acquired along this corridor for the public works, or have we sold it back to private developers?
I'm not aware of any. That's probably not an answer, but no, I'm not aware of any specifically.
Okay. And
Okay.
have staff identified any process to look at some sort of designation around protecting the corridor from inappropriate development or making it unsafe?
Not specifically, no.
Right.
Okay.
Is that do you think that's a gap in how we do things?
I'm afraid that's
Oh,
beyond
that's a fairly
our
big-
the
yeah.
scope of this project.
That's not fair.
Right.
I
It's
think-
just I'm trying to understand because we acquired land, and then before we've come to the conclusion of what we're going to do in terms of safety improvements, it would appear that land has been developed on. I'm just trying to understand the kind of.
Where are you talking about?
Remember the kids' bakery area corner in Cranford?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
can I check on in the report? I just want to get a sense of on page 78. This is in the attachment D. It says that Stantec has not received, reviewed any transport modelling analysis or evidence which clearly and robustly identifies the effects of the bus lanes on bus and general traffic travel times. And then it goes on. I'm just trying to understand what that Stantec report is referring to, given that this was a trial, and why they're saying they haven't done that assessment, or what they can't find that assessment.
Oh yeah, the bus lane trial, the ECAN, they didn't follow up, they didn't do the assessment. So it's because of the staff changes and the system changes, they didn't, we cannot collect the data since the trial. So we did a manual survey. It's in appendix 3, I think. There's a survey, we got data on the bus, there's manual counted. So there's some comparison of the bus travel time with the general traffic.
Right. And sorry, there's just so many pages and attachments, but the high level assessment of the bus lane, what has been the journey time improvement and the passenger improvement?
Yeah, it is, sorry, it's quite hard to say, because it's in the charts in the appendix. There are some graphic. So sometimes the bus travels faster than general traffic, sometimes slower. So it's really hard to explain, but the graphic shows the trends.
So what page is that in our report?
It's in the appendix, appendix C, I think.
Okay,
Yeah, appendix C,
cool, thanks.
attachment C. That's page number 9 of the attachment C.
Page number 9,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Henstock.
Yeah, can I foreshadow, please, that this gets sent back to the community board if that doesn't get across the line today, please?
That's fine. Okay.
Sorry,
then,
can I just...
oh, sorry, Councillor Johansson.
I was just trying to understand. So, the difference in travel time for the bus, having the bus lane, what is it? What's the...
It's good. So there is a table that shows the modelled traffic times between different modes in different situations. That is table 1, 4.13.3. And the difference is relatively small.
Yeah, that table is travel modelling results. It shows that for the bus lane, buses is 0.8 minutes. That's about 48 seconds faster than general traffic.
Right, okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Okay. Councillor Kewen.
Yeah, so a couple. First up, what is the result if it's the council vote against the bus lane today? Then what happens? What does the lane become?
Well, it's until March, isn't it?
Yeah. So the bus lane trial is in place until the end of March, and at that point, it would revert back to a a road with parking at all times down both sides of the road. So we would end up without, because there's no decision for clearway and there's no special vehicle lane for T2 or bus lane.
That's quite a good answer, thank you.
Yeah, but the decision would come back, yes.
And then when I read in the purpose and origin of the report, the council is required to monitor traffic on affected streets where traffic increases by more than 30% as a result of the opening of the CNC, measures to mitigate the impacts by improving the operations of Cranford, Sherborne streets, or implementing traffic calming measures must be considered. So what is there an increase? What did the monitoring?
So there are general increases, but there are only a few spots where we're over that 40% threshold. So we've been dealing with Francis and Flockton, which are really a slightly different issue, but they are related to the way we're trying to make traffic work. And then we have seen a couple of spots that have gone over 40% recently, and that could be related to the works we've recently been doing on Innes Road, so we're continuing to monitor that. What we're concerned about, I think, longer term is that the notice of requirement is in place until 2030, and we'd expect traffic to grow over that period of time. So we may well breach the threshold in more places during that period.
But we have breached the threshold, but we're still not going to trial a clearway to see if that releases that.
That's a decision for the Community Board and Council.
Or not council, because we don't get a say. But we're only elected to have no say. And then on the on page 203, where it says the average travel time in minutes for the HOVs and the bus and the single occupancy vehicles, that's a model, it's not real, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So how do we know? Well, they're not real numbers because the road's never had any other options. It's never had an HOV or a clearway, or it's only had a bus lane.
Yeah, but traffic monitoring is a fairly standard way of looking at options in all sorts of different circumstances. And I think to be fair, the point of the bus lane trial in terms of the notice of requirement is seeing whether we end up breaching that 40% threshold in a wider area. And on the whole, at this point, we haven't, but we're getting closer to that point on a lot of streets.
The purpose of the bus lane trial was that to see how many people catch the bus and see if we get a really good uptake and it increases the travel time.
And those things have happened.
That is the question.
So,
wasn't that the purpose?
at the risk of relitigating this whole thing that a community board already spent 4 hours on, Councillor Henstock has the question, hopefully the last one.
Thank you. It was raised in an earlier question about this Cranford Street being having metropolitan significance. Have you got a view on that?
Not really. I mean, council has specifically delegated the downstream effects to the community board, so that's the delegated point for it.
Okay, so enabling the right movement in the right place is one of the core principles that informs all of our goals and our transport strategy. You'll be aware of that. And so is Cranford Street the right place where transport is meant to be coming into the city?
So I think Cranford Street for me is different to a lot of our other projects in that it is driven by that notice of requirement, and the notice of requirement does talk about stopping traffic going onto side streets and keeping it away from the main bus routes of Main North Road and Papanui Road and the main cycle route of Rutland Street.
Okay, so the answer is yes, that is the right place. It's movement in the right place.
That's not really.
So, in all fairness, that's going back over really old ground there,
Okay,
because
so
it was years and years to decide that alternate route to come in.
I'll turn my mind then to the notice of requirement and the DEMP. Is it correct that I recall from our community board meeting that we're advised that the notice of requirement specifically recommended peak-hour clearways as a possible intervention to improve traffic flow? Yeah. And it was also a recommended option in the downstream effects management plan?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Right, so there's no more questions. Kelly Barber?
Sorry if I've missed this. Can you tell me how many buses and how many cars would use Cranford Street in a day?
In the peak hours, there are 7 buses in the peak hours.
Yeah.
For the traffic volume, it's about because the numbers somewhere is about, in my head was about 25,000 a day.
So could you say there, so 7 buses an hour and 25,000 cars?
In each direction. So at peak time, you'd expect about 7 buses coming in the morning and about going out in the evening.
7.
Thank you.
And about 25,000 a day on that corridor. Yeah.
Councillor
Thank you.
Henstock.
Can I just get clarification on that 7 buses? Are those 7 buses stopping in that route, or are they going straight through?
Among those 7 buses, 4 of them are the express buses. Only 3 buses stops on the bus stops on Cranford Street between Innes and Berwick.
Okay, thank you. So I'll now open it up for debate.
Oh, just last question, it's a quick one.
Yep.
On the 7 buses, what's the total number of people going each way?
We have some background.
No, it's not an if.
Sorry, that's an ECAN question.
So we have some background information in attachment M. Those are the number from Waimakiriri of the number of the park and ride numbers.
No, just people on the bus, because some might walk to the bus.
We don't know, we don't have that number.
Okay, Madam Chair, this
That
isn't
is an
saying that we're
ECAN
making
question.
a decision over a bus lane, we don't even have the numbers.
It is an ECAN question.
I mean, 7 to 25,000 is a big number, but
Okay.
if the buses are full, there's a
I'm
big
going to open
difference
it up for debate. Debate, Victoria? Thank you.
Yeah. I have to say that I'm really embarrassed that this recommendation from my community board and the position that we find ourselves in today is nothing short of batshit bonkers. It's not language that I use in this chamber very often, and I apologise if it offends you, but I can't find anything positive to say about this recommendation. You heard my questions of the board chair, you heard my questions of staff, that even if the majority here preferred a clear way, we don't have that result. We can't get that result today. So we're in this ridiculous decision-making position today with really no decision-making options, because the community board, the majority of the community board colleagues actually allowed this to happen because they knew that this was going to be a result, and they've denied elected members here an opportunity to make a decision of metropolitan significance for the city. You heard the board chair say that she brought a notice of motion because she saw this coming, and that got voted down. Look, my frustration aside, I don't support the bus lane recommendation. We had a trial for 3 years. It didn't reduce congestion, it didn't reduce driver frustration, it didn't make things safer, and we really have to try something different. Remember that the Clearway was recommended by staff, it was recommended by the roading experts because it was the most successful option to try and relieve congestion to result in a safer and more efficient transport network. And congestion is inextricably linked to safety. I think we can all agree that. And it follows that if we can reduce the congestion, then we can reduce some of the reckless driver behaviour and the rat running and the unsafe streets and the high speeds on the side streets. We are constantly striving to increase public trust and confidence in council decision making. And here we are here with a community board that's ignoring the expert opinion and ignoring the public voice, and we're just going to continue to fight a losing battle if that carries on. We know the city's growing, we know the region's growing, and with that comes challenges, and I think Cranford Street really epitomises some of those challenges. But this is the main transport corridor into the city from the north. It was always intended to be. Increased traffic was anticipated, and it's incumbent on us as a council to design infrastructure that manages that growth. And you heard the staff say the notice of requirement specifically recommended a peak hour clearway as a possible intervention, and the DEMP also recommended that as an option, so it's no surprise that the staff were recommending that. Enabling the right movement in the right place is a core principle of our transport strategy, and Cranford Street is the right place, and that traffic is meant to be there. Now, I fully accept that we have other transport goals, and genuine transport choice, reducing emissions, a vibrant, healthy, livable city. Those are all really important goals, and I acknowledge that. But we don't have to achieve all of our transport goals on Cranford Street. We've got plenty more streets and a truckload of other incredibly great initiatives, including the Papanui Parallel, which is just a couple of blocks away.
Thank you.
I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henstock. Councillor Fields and then Coker.
I'll speak in support of the motion actually, because I want to specifically address the notion that opening up a clearway for a few hundred metres on a street that eventually will not have a clearway, that will somehow miraculously improve traffic flow. And to do this, I want to just reference the theory of constraints. Now, the theory of constraints is a business management philosophy that emphasises identifying and addressing the most critical time-limiting factor, or the constraint, that stands in the way of achieving a goal. So those of us who have spent time on the shop floor of a manufacturing plant will understand this. That's what Toyota did time and time again to become what it is, and that's why we should try it sometime in planning our cities and our traffic circulation. Because in the context of traffic flow, the goal is to ensure smooth and efficient movement of vehicles on, for example, Cranford Street and beyond. When we open up a clearway for a few hundred metres, we're essentially removing a minor obstacle. However, if the street eventually narrows down, which it does, that segment then becomes the primary constraint. No matter how much we improve the flow in the preceding section, the overall traffic flow speed will be limited by the capacity of the street where the clearway ends. So imagine a funnel. Widening the top of the funnel does not increase the rate at which liquid flows out the bottom. It just doesn't. It's mathematics. Similarly, in our traffic scenario, the end of the clearway acts as the narrow spout, constraining the overall flow of vehicles. This approach can lead to unintended consequences. We've heard about rat running and suboptimal behaviours. That's not going to go away. As vehicles move more quickly through the clearway, they may encounter a bottleneck at the point the road again becomes constrained, leading to increased congestion and frustration, higher emissions, reduced safety as drivers become impatient and attempt risky manoeuvres, because they're going to do that when they encounter the constraint, regardless of where the constraint is. To truly improve traffic flow, we must address the primary constraint. This could involve measures such as, building a motorway through the middle of Christchurch, or perhaps something less insane, like optimising traffic signal timings or implementing alternative modes of transport. Amazing. By focusing on the actual bottleneck, we can achieve a more significant and sustainable improvement in traffic conditions. So let's be clear. Even if there was no bus, or the bus was empty all day, every day, the constraint still exists. So instead of going for a quick sugar hit or something that sounds great, why don't we try something novel and apply mathematics and logic and apply the principles of the theory of constraints? Then we can identify and tackle the real issues and look for effective and lasting solutions like Toyota did.
Thank you. Councillor Coker.
Just quickly, look, I will be supporting the Community Board decision today, and in this case it wasn't the most popular option through the consultation, but it was certainly not the least favoured during the consultation, which some people will be pushing in the next item that we'll be doing. Thinking logically, do we prefer 7 buses or close to 400 cars? There'll be an extra 400 cars if people decide that not having a bus lane will actually mean that they don't want to take the bus. There could be an extra 400 cars down there. Continuing with the bus lane will encourage those bus users from out of town to come in on the bus, reducing the number of cars on the road. It's only a good thing.
Oh, thank you. Councillor Peters.
Thank you. Certainly hear what Councillor Fields was saying there about moving the trouble spot. Surely we'll have the same problem if we confirm the bus lane, that when the bus lane ends, you've got another congestion point. So no matter what we decide today, you're moving the congestion point further down. So we're stuck between a rock and a hard place. But the big thing that sticks in my mind is we've done a trial for how long? Is it 3 years with the bus lane? And it's proven not to work. And we're being asked today to reconfirm the bus lane permanently. There's a definition for insanity, which is doing the same thing, expecting a different result. It's just, it's not going to work. So no, I won't be supporting the recommendation to us today, and I will be supporting the foreshadowed motion.
Thank you. Councillor Templeton and then Councillor Barber.
Kia ora koutou. I'd like to thank everyone for the enormous amount of time and energy and effort put into this. Transport debates are always fraught within the community, and it's actually very rare that anything is black and white, and in this case it's not either. You know, it's a balance between a whole range of different competing priorities and ideologies about who should have priority and where and when. When it comes to the numbers, it's also easy to play with the numbers. We could say that the majority, in theory, didn't want the bus lane, but actually the majority also didn't want the clearway. And when you look at what a T2 lane is, which is the alternate, people who went for the T2 lane were specifically saying that they did not want the availability for single occupancy cars just to be driving down there on 2 lanes. So you could say that the majority were in favour of not allowing people just to be driving the single occupancy cars, which is 83%, in 2 lanes down Cranford Street. I'll be supporting the community board on this one today. And for various reasons, including the fact that they've listened really carefully to some of the key stakeholders in their community. They know their community best. They have been dealing with the downstream effects of this particular old decision of a previous council for a really long time now, and I believe that this is the best option. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Barber.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, look, I think this has been a really interesting process. Just referring to my colleague's mention of mathematics and logic, I mean, my only comment would be 7 buses versus 25,000 cars. You know, 83% of people travelling in cars. I would have thought that we could accommodate everybody with a clearway. I thought that would have been the smart option. It allows for the fact that there are times during the day when people are travelling in buses and need a bit of space to whiz along there. I get that. I would have thought that would be smart. Yeah, I won't be supporting it, but I think it's been a fairly robust process, so it'll be what it'll be. Cheers.
Thank you. All right, well, I'll close off as the... Oh, okay, Councillor Moore and then... Oh, sorry, Councillor Kewen, you were first and then Councillor Moore.
Yeah, so a couple of things I want to address here. The theory of constraints, an interesting one, because even in the report it says from Innes Road to Berwick Street, which for the councillors here that obviously haven't gone and looked at the area or the history or all the changes or the millions of dollars spent to Berwick Street to take the traffic flow as it splits at Berwick Street, where you have 3 lanes for turning, going straight ahead, merging with the green arrows. Berwick Street, for those that haven't gone and looked, feeds round to the one-way system that was put there in the 1960s to feed the traffic in and through the city. So yes, the theory of constraint was considered back in the 60s and then was overridden by people who decide to not go with the experts that designed the original system to make traffic flow and go against the experts that told the council to put in a clearway. I was happy just to trial a clearway because that way we can look at the actual numbers, not the ones that are in the report, which are modelled numbers, just made up, because we don't know what a clearway looks like on Cranford Street. So we should at least have done a clearway trial, because then if the ones that support that are wrong, I'm happy to put my hand up and say we're wrong, but we don't know because we don't trial. So that when you go against what the experts are saying and the majority of people that submitted who wanted the clearway, then you are no longer a facilitator and you become a dictator. And that is what makes people lose confidence in the city, because you're telling them how to live their life and you are demonising them for being a single occupant of a vehicle as you head to work on what's not a bus route, or you might be going across town to pick up your mother to take her to a hospital appointment. You may have just dropped the kids off to a preschool. So all those evil 83% of the population that use that road as a single vehicle operator, you're going to demonise them because they didn't catch a bus. The numbers just don't stack up. We should at very least be trialling a clearway. But no, we will go for the dictatorship rather than the facilitators that we should be. And that there is very, very disappointing if that's the way we go.
Thank you. Councillor Moore?
Thank you. I'm going to throw a totally different view altogether in the mix here that hasn't really been talked about thus far today, which is what I like to do and possibly what I do best. Just on insanity, I mean, one thing that would be insanity is opening up another lane knowing that congestion is going to be just as bad or worse in a few years' time, and then we'll get there in 5 years' time and go, right, now what do we do? There's not many options. But on mathematics and logic, the T2 lane does appear to be the superior, because what it does is it means that buses and motorists would both have substantially shorter journey times. A T2 lane, it also gets buses through, just on the numbers in the report there, it gets buses through about just as quick as what it would with the bus lane. But what it also does is it gets motorists through substantially quicker than what they would if it was just a bus lane. And it still encourages things like carpooling or busing, these kinds of things. So it encourages that type of behaviour. As per the Safe System Assessment Score Summary, it's also the safest option. But coming back to the consultation, which is pretty important for any decision here today. So T2 lane obviously wasn't the first preference, but if you ask someone who preferred a bus lane, what's your second preference? They'd say, as we see here, they say the T2 lane. But if you ask someone who prefers the clearway, what's your second preference? They say the T2 lane. So the job here is often to make a decision that will make one side happy and piss off the other. But as per the consultation here, as also the numbers that stack up, there's actually a clear compromise here that achieves the outcomes that both sides want. So I'm at a loss as to why it's barely been discussed. Obviously, if you ask someone to choose between three, you end up with numbers of what we've got. But if you got that transferable vote system and you actually assess preferences, T2 lane appears to come out on top and achieves those outcomes we're after. So give it some thought.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison-Hunt.
I'm just going to make it really quick. I just wanted to take this precedent that we're setting in regards to ignoring experts' views into the next item. That's all I'm going to say.
Thank you. And Councillor McClellan.
Oh, just with regard to my learned colleague, Councillor Henstock's view, look, in terms of delegations, there's no conspiracy here. You know, the community board have their job to do. We are the ones who task them with their job and assign those delegations, and that's what they've done. Look, the public consultation showed no overwhelmingly strong option over any other option, and the board factored that into account. Through countless submissions, both spoken and non-spoken, and I think it's really hard to see what would be achieved by sending this back to the community board. I'm not sure really what that would do other than just express a desire of unhappiness, and you can express that, you can vote the way you want, but I just think would be much better to listen to the community board, as we always should do.
Thank you. All right, so as the mover I will close off, and I'll actually answer some of the questions, particularly around the T2 for Councillor Moore and others perhaps who have not been so involved in this. So the issue with T2, which already exists on the motorway section, is there is no ability to A, monitor to see how many people are actually in the vehicle, or enforce. Now those things require quite a lot of investment. Secondly, to bring a T2 into the Cranford Street area means that the cars would have to switch lanes on the motorway because it doesn't add up. So that actually has been identified as very dangerous in the report. Secondly, the assumption that a clearway will increase and facilitate traffic flow is not correct, particularly when we listen to Councillor Fields explain in such a scientific way the theory of compression and the funnel theory. It just happens anyway. So from Berwick Street to Beeley Ave, the traffic stops at Beeley Ave. There's nowhere to go. So that, in my view, that congestion will back up all the way to possibly, who knows, but at least Westminster Street, possibly Innes Road. Yes, the original design and the original motorway was to exit down Barbados Street and enter the motorway via Madras Street. We've made so many changes in the central city now that entering the city by Barbados Street is not actually that viable. And even without the roadworks, Barbados Street is backing right up in the mornings, right back to north of Edgware Road. So you're still going to get that congestion, and it's not going to be the silver bullet to solve this. My view is that Cranford Street actually is not part of the motorway. It's part of the community. The motorway finishes up near Placemakers. This is a community road. So to think about it as a motorway and consider putting 4 lanes in there is pretty stretching the long bow. And I know no wonder that the community here is objecting to that. Secondly, Clearway creating 2 lanes is the most dangerous, because we already have huge issues with red light running at Westminster Street in Cranford. And if you can imagine, you've got 2 lanes coming in one direction, you've got one that's blind. If you've got an inside or an outside one running red, that's a recipe for real danger, and that's the intersection that the school kids are using. There's been public commentary about the submissions being a clear majority for a clearway. This is really untrue. When you look at the submissions, the first preference by people who live in Christchurch, 166 wanted a bus lane, 165 a clearway. When you look at people living on Cranford Street, it was 50-50. When you look at organisations, it was 8 wanting a bus lane and 4 wanting a clearway. So, you know, the submissions have been really well broken down into categories, so it's unfair just to pick one number and focus on that and say a majority wanted this. Look, this is a really, people are obviously really passionate about this, particularly around a clearway. I think that comments around the community board, there's no need to be disrespectful. The community board has spent hours and hours and hours on this, reading submissions, listening to deputations, having workshops with staff, talking to people, and then that final meeting was around 4 hours. We're all over it. And the vote was 6-2. So it's really, I think the community board should be respected here, and even though not everyone will get their way, the bus lane, in my view, is working. ECAN are looking at expanding the park and ride in Waimakariri to cope for it. I have seen buses full. So, you know, and we have a partnership with Environment Canterbury, and they were one of the organisations that supported the bus lane, and we're really keen to support public transport. Come hell or high water, people will be on it one day in Christchurch. We will move into the 21st century. All right, and on that note, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? No. We have division. Saves Councillor Scandrick calling for it.
So this is a division for the motion for the bus lane. Councillor Kewen? No. Councillor McLennan?
Yes.
Councillor McDonald?
No.
Councillor Henstock? No. Councillor Moore? No. Councillor Scandrett?
Yes.
Councillor Harrison Hunt?
Yes.
Councillor Coker?
Yes.
Councillor Peters?
No.
The Mayor?
No.
Councillor Templeton?
Aye.
Councillor Barber?
No.
Deputy Mayor Cotter?
Aye.
Councillor Fields?
For the sake of mathematics, yes.
Councillor Johansson?
Yes.
Councillor Donovan?
Yes.
And Councillor Goff?
No.
That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 4. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 against.
So that is carried. And thank you everyone for the excellent debate and all the work on this. And now we move forward. So, do we want to have that? What's to do we want to have that presentation?